Hey everybody, welcome to the, finally, the Good Doctor's coverage of Handmaid's Tale.
Hooray, it's time.
It's time. I'm still Dr. Donnelly.
I am perpetually Dr. Hinson.
And we have a lot of feelings, so let's get to it.
Episode 1.
So when we last left you, we were mad.
We were very mad.
We'd like you to know that we remain mad.
We're 6 episodes in, everybody. We're all caught up.
We all, this is the commitment we have to you. We just binged 6 episodes of this show, which should qualify us for hazard pay of some fashion.
I feel like overtime, emotional distress.
We have so many things. So, yeah. But we're still going to do an episode by episode situation, and we're not going to spoil anything.
No.
We promise, just like we did last year. I have a sinus infection, so ignore the croak. So the first episode of season 3 is called Night. And we pick up exactly where we left off, which was with June being a confusing entity.
Human.
As Josh Lyman was trying to get her to Canada.
God bless.
And I recognize his name. I think his name's Joseph Lawrence. Sure, he'll always be Josh Lyman to me. So
Dr. Donnelly is just going to refer to him probably as Josh Lyman.
Yeah, just like I'm always going to call Nick Eyebrows.
Eyebrows. Yeah.
Okay, so we are confirmed the theory that June stayed in Gilead to rescue Hannah.
Yep. She tells us herself. And
clearly, Lyman thinks that this is the dumbest thing he's ever heard. And but he tells her that he'll take her to see Hannah. We get her to see Hannah, and Hannah's new mom is like, "Hi, you can't keep doing this."
Hi. I'd like to talk to you about traumatizing my child.
I'd really like you to have a conversation about what love looks like and trauma, which I really appreciated. Mrs. Mackenzie was like a decent human in this conversation.
Yeah, and she didn't have to tell June
any of those things.
All that nice stuff about Hannah. She could have just had the Guardians take her out of the house. So it's weird to see, and this is a theme throughout the episodes I've seen this season without spoiling anything, this odd compassion.
Yeah.
There's a lot of compassion in small moments in this episode and in the other episodes, but everyone's still upholding the system of Gilead.
Yes, even June.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, she has to survive, so.
Yeah, but that's also, for me, I think ultimately the most frustrating thing about her choice to stay is that she, in doing so, helps reiterate Gilead's power over her. We talked about this in the season finale. We're not mothers, so I can't say what I would do in that situation.
Right.
But it's really difficult. And again, if we knew what an end date for the series was, then we could know what the dramaturgical arcs were. So perhaps if they only got 3 seasons, June would have pieced out, and they're settling in for 9, and we're doing this, until time immemorial. I have no idea.
No.
But it's really interesting how they're going to have to keep doing this dance. We're getting ahead of ourselves. So
right.
June ends up back at the Waterfords, and Eyebrows is pissed that she didn't get out.
Oh, so angry. Righteous anger from our Nick.
Which again,
you're never getting out. You're going to die here.
You're going to die here. And that's also what doesn't Mrs. Mackenzie say it to her? This all ends with you on your knees dying in front of her.
Yeah. You know all of this ends with you dying on the ground in front of her.
In front of Hannah. I don't understand.
And
June's always had this really selfish naivete that's always been part of her character. But I really would have thought we would have grown a little bit more by now, but no.
She's still
she's still herself.
She's still herself, which I guess is, it's difficult to change on a fundamental level. But I'm not sure where they're going this season with this concept of June as inherently single-mindedly focused on saving Hannah.
Right. To the expense of the bigger picture.
Right. So is she ever going to be that type of heroine? Is something going to happen that prompts her to be right, the cause is bigger than my child? Or is she always just going to do whatever she has to take to save Hannah? We don't know.
And I think what gets me about that too is like she's going to do whatever it takes to save Hannah, but she sees like a sliver of this picture.
Yeah.
That's what continues to stress me out. Like she was doing this and I was like, child, you get to Canada and you have the CBC cameras for you. Like,
Yeah.
what are you? Oh, okay. Okay. So back in the episode, we see that Emily makes it to Canada.
Yay! Hooray, Rory Gilmore.
Hooray, Rory Gilmore. Still maintain that she's not the most gifted actress, but she did a good job in this scene. I do love that she was afraid to speak until they said the word Canada. I liked that piece of the trauma narrative. Like,
Yes.
we're having a lot of, as we film this, we're having a lot of national conversation about asylum seekers. And so I've been doing a lot of reading about asylum and the narratives of asylum. And that's a really common theme that people talk about. They were afraid to like let out a breath until they had information as to where they were.
She still didn't know where she was, and she's, you know, obviously deathly afraid.
Yeah.
Because she knows if she gets caught by Gilead, she's dead.
Yeah.
And so, and like, and I appreciate that the Canadian law enforcement person like knew that about her and like kind of was a very leading question. Like, if you return to your country, are you going to be?
But that's also legally what they have to say.
Yeah. But the fact that he said it instead of just started asking her questions, you know, allowed her to just understand where she was and just answer like really, really briefly, yes, I'm seeking asylum. So
yes, I'm seeking asylum. So following her story, I loved that then we follow her to the hospital where she was given consent and she was given power and they all welcomed her. The applause made me cry.
Yeah, it was a little weird, but I like, because I watched this episode twice.
Okay.
It was weird, but fine. Like, I understand why they did it. And it left me thinking, like, how many refugees do they get now? Because
my thought was it's trickled down quite a bit.
I'm sure it has. And it's a really, really rare thing. It's a really, really rare thing now that people make it across the border. Whereas I'm sure there was a huge influx when all of the kerfuffle was happening, when Gilead was taking over. So,
and I wonder too, there's a difference for them emotionally when somebody comes who was a Martha versus somebody comes who was a handmaid, and they know.
They all know what the handmaids go through. Yeah.
They know.
Yeah.
And clearly they had some of Emily's. They knew a little bit about Emily somehow. So.
Yeah, it's interesting what the Canadian government knows and what they don't know, and how they're getting their information. So.
Yeah, but I absolutely loved that. And. Okay, so back to the Waterfords.
Yeah.
Serena's in a place.
Serena's not okay.
She's having, I think, some sort of psychotic break.
She says at the beginning of the episode, I did what I had to do. I did what was best for my child. So she is convinced that what was best for Nicole was getting her out of Gilead.
This is also a really fascinating conversation about the definitions of motherhood that are going to happen.
Yeah.
And of course, like, I have friends who adopted, and I would never ever say that that child wasn't theirs, but I'm really hesitant to call Nicole Serena Joy's child. And I don't know if it's because there wasn't any consent on June's part. Like, I don't know what my hesitancy is.
Right.
But every time she says it, I'm just like, bitch, that girl's yours.
Yeah, and that was a really interesting moment between Mrs. Mackenzie and June, and the phrase "I'm her mother." So like Mrs. Mackenzie uses that against June like really early on, and she's like, "What? You're surprised she told me? Of course she told me. I'm her mother."
I'm her mother. Yeah.
And then you start to think that Mrs. Mackenzie has got to June, like after all of this, you know, making her feel guilty about what she's doing to Hannah, and you have to leave her alone. And I'm going to give you this gift of telling you what she's like as a young person. And then she walks up to her and says like, oh, she has your eyes, like, you know, blessed day or whatever, some Gilead phrase.
Yeah.
And like, you can see, God bless Elizabeth Moss, like you can see June switch back, and she just looks at her and she goes, I'm her mother. And like, all of a sudden she's like, you know what? I'm not going to feel guilty about this. I'm going to do whatever I can to save my child. Cause when it comes down to it, I'm her mother.
Yeah.
So that was really powerful. And Serena does that as well. She's going through this whole, it's my child, I can do what I want.
Yeah. And again, I think I'm going to wrestle with that for most of the season if Serena keeps this thread up, because it's really like, we know that she built all of Gilead because she wanted to be a mother.
Yeah, all of
That's what the first 2 seasons told us.
Yeah.
So I understand that, like, she and I do not see the world the same way.
Newsflash.
I
We
can
don't
accept
agree with
that.
Serena.
Season 3, I don't like Serena. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, so one of the things that Serena does in her mental break is she lights the ceremony bed on fire. How did we feel about that?
Oh, we feel great about that.
Yeah, real great.
We feel like she's
Yeah.
grappling with the fact that her husband, like, turned her over to the Guardians and got her finger removed for daring to read from the Bible. And yeah, I felt real good about that. And I was like, we're getting rebel Serena. Like, there's a secret feminist in there. She has realized, like, this is really, really toxic, the culture that has been created. And yeah, sets the bed on fire, sets the house on fire. The whole thing burns.
So June finds her.
Yep.
And we get a voiceover. And June says a phrase about the Lord Jesus will take vengeance. So Pastor Kristen, who doesn't know the King James Version of the Bible off the top of my head, had to Google that one.
And we know they're using the King James, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, also the word thou, that's the only, King James and New King James are pretty much the only translations of the Bible that use the, like, Old English.
Okay.
And they don't even use the straight King James. Like, I think the writers take the King James and then they make it even more archaic, because there are times where, like, King James says you and Handmaid's Tale still says thou.
Okay. It's a thin interpretation of the King James. They're probably calling it the Gilead Bible or something.
Oh, I'm sure they are. Or like the true scripture. I would absolutely love to see what they call it. Oh my gosh, that would be fascinating.
I know.
But in reading to you what she quotes, she says, and to those who are troubled, you should rest with us. When the Lord Jesus shall be revealed from heaven with his mighty angels in flaming fire, taking vengeance on them that do not know God and do not obey the gospel. All who shall be punished with everlasting destruction from the presence of the Lord will rest then with the saints.
Okay. So it's, and like, we've talked about this before in this series and in other TV shows, like, fire is symbolically, like, ritualistically cleansing.
Yeah.
And is used in a lot of cultures and a lot of traditions symbolically to represent the changing of time or a new period, cleansing the earth, cleansing whatever, so that then something can begin again or something can be reborn. Or so for me, that was kind of what I was, like, anthropologically what I was thinking. And
when I connected those dots to the scripture, I was like, okay, we've gotten a few hints along the way that June was raised in some sort of faith tradition.
Yeah.
And that she is, I mean, we don't see the handmaids getting theological education. So anything that June knows, I'm assuming she brought to this life.
Right.
And maybe it's reinforced. Maybe they go to, like, I'm sure they hear sermons. But to call up that thing, to me, that's the show saying that the show is acknowledging that Gilead is not true Christians. The show is acknowledging that these people are not true bearers of the gospel. And therefore the Lord will take vengeance upon them. So I would very much like that to be true, and I would like Gilead to burn to the ground immediately and all these people to be free. But
yeah, what does June say? Burn, motherfucker, burn.
Burn. So, and there's a lot of, you know, if we're going to talk about, like, just like you said, Aaron, there's lots of, in, like, society. I mean, one of the reasons we talk about purifying fire in a lot of societies is that was the only way to purify anything for a long ass time.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's a narrative throughout both the Christian and Jewish and even the Islamic scriptures as well. So if they're gonna keep that going, then yeah.
There's nothing, but we don't know what the burning of Gilead would look like.
And we also don't really know what the ramifications of burning the Waterfords' house is, except that all of a sudden June gets separated from them. So I'm going to assume that they're thinking that June burned the bed.
Yeah, but there aren't
I couldn't figure out, why is June taken?
Yeah. Because
then and not before. Like,
right,
she's going to be punished for what she did at the Mackenzies. fine. But why was she even allowed to go back to the Waterfords?
Back to the Waterfords, yeah, after, because clearly they caught her at the Mackenzie, so you would think she would go to the Red Center, like straight from the Mackenzie.
Straight from there. I didn't understand that.
And they've all, like, it's really interesting that they all agreed really easily to the concocted story that Emily abducted Nicole, and Serena and June tried to stop her,
and that then just magically
of, like, keeping everyone off the wall,
I guess. And then all of a sudden, and so then Zoe ends up with Josh in a really epic West Wing reunion. Like that
West Wing.
That really seemed to, there's a great scene in the West Wing where they talk about chili, and I kept flashing back to that over and over again.
Yeah, but it's
like Death on a Triscuit. Thanks, I'm seeing a new barber.
Who
authorized that?
Yeah, who puts in that request? Was that Commander Lawrence? Did he ask for her for a reason?
Does he even know who she was before this, besides the bridge? Besides being the idiot who...
Right. Who didn't take the opportunity she was given, or, you know, maybe he knows about her because she saved Janine's baby, Angela.
And she's the chief troublemaker of all the feckin' handmaids. I don't know how this woman has not been beheaded, no lie, in this world.
Right. And, like, we haven't seen Aunt Lydia yet, so we don't know what's going on with that in terms of who's controlling the handmaids now.
Is Aunt Lydia even alive? I can't remember.
But we see... Yeah, we don't know, because we saw her, like, get pushed down the stairs.
Yeah, I thought she died. I mean, my assumption was she died.
I know. Yeah, so, like, is she dead? We don't know. We didn't see it.
Okay.
But June gets tortured a little bit at the Red Center, so clearly they like punished her for what happened with the Mackenzies. But it just felt really weird. It didn't seem like there was punishment for the house burning, and, like, was Serena gonna say, like, she accidentally knocked over a candle and the whole feckin' house burned down? Like,
yeah, do they even have arson investigators to find out that she poured isopropyl alcohol all over the bed?
And, like, or does Commander Waterford have enough power that, like, he can just tell everyone, like, it's fine, like, look away?
We had an accident. We burned down a giant Back Bay mansion that's been standing since the 1700s.
I know. It was so weird. And then June, like, super cash says goodbye to Nick, like, all the best.
Yeah, that infuriated me. I was like, what story are we telling? Pick one.
I wish you all the best. Cool. Good luck in life. Good luck in life. I'm imprisoned and enslaved as a handmaid in some freakish new world created in part of America. But yeah.
And you're about to go to the front, and so that you can possibly expand this hellish new world that I am trying to get out of. Oh, but wait, I'm not trying to get out of because I was given the opportunity to, and I have some sort of weird fantasy that I'm going to blow it up from the inside.
No, or it's just save Hannah. So I think she just wants to save Hannah. That's all she wants. That's all girl wants to do is save Hannah. Everybody else be damned.
And again, as the non-mom, we don't trade lives.
Yeah, why is Hannah's life worth more than everybody else's? And she vacillates between, like, wanting to destroy the system, but at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, she always chooses her own survival so that she can eventually help
Hannah's. And, like, my thing is, like, okay, but you've got this second kid, and, like, I get that you trust your husband, but you're still sending her away from her two biological parents. And if she was if June was in Canada with
Nicole, I know.
I think this is just like, we should just we should clip this a little bit and probably just play it every single episode. Because
this is just going to be the constant rant about what's going on.
About June and what is happening. I had one other thing to say. So when we were watching Elizabeth Moss slowly walk through a house clearly on fire, which, two things real quick. One, there's no way in hell that thing didn't go up like a tinderbox.
Way faster. But
so that was an issue. And two, do we not have smoke detectors in Gilead? Like anywhere?
I was surprised to see fire trucks, like old-fashioned, like fire, like American fire trucks. I
was like, okay. There was just a couple like, that was the thing that really, as I was watching this smoke, I was like, are you guys actually having me believe that a house full of, like, damask furniture and wood and massive fabric didn't go up like in 7 seconds? Why is everyone not running out of the house?
Because, like, and we've talked about this in the past seasons, right? Like, Gilead has kind of gone back in time in a lot of ways, but they still keep some technology that suits them.
Yeah, they still have electricity.
They still have electricity. They still have, like, lots of weapons, like, development, car technology development, listening devices and communication devices. So they've got this cafeteria kind of idea of reverting society, like back to, or creating a new society, in which there are lots of limitations and you do things really old school, except when it's necessary. And I'm like, if you're all living in these really old colonial homes in Boston, like, wouldn't you want fire detectors?
Big fan of fire detectors. Big fan.
Yeah. And
it's just like and so this makes me a little nervous for this season. I think, because these are some low-hanging narrative fruits that I would have hoped somebody could have plugged.
Yeah.
So I'm a little nervous.
And because we don't know how many seasons there are, right? Like, we don't know. So
we know this one has 13 episodes.
Yes, we do know this season has 13. But, like, after that, are we doing 4 seasons? Are we doing 7 seasons?
Are we doing 34? I mean, like, are we doing the Game of Thrones thing here where it really should have been 7 seasons, but we're going to pretend it's going to be 8? Like,
I don't know. And all the cinematography made me really nervous because
someone got a bigger budget.
Yeah, because Game of Thrones this last season was all about, like, super fancy looking shots that were some of the most brilliant and beautiful shots I've ever seen on television, but there was very little narrative support behind them. And so I'm nervous. I'm like, oh, you guys have fallen a little too much in love with your own vision.
Yes. And Elizabeth Moss has been doing almost all of the facial heavy lifting for many episodes now.
All the heavy lifting, yeah. And I mean, she continues to
be great, but, like, Homegirl can get some dialogue.
She continues to be amazing. Like, the scene between her and Serena, like when June only spoke to Serena when Waterford was like, what have you done? She was like, Serena, she's safe. And, like, the acting between Yvonne Strahovski and, like,
they're wonderful. They're absolutely wonderful.
The two of them going back and forth, and, like, the dance that they're doing is fantastic acting and fantastic television. But we have some concerns, y'all.
Yeah, I just don't feel I am always here for television in the narrative. And, like, yes, television is a visual medium, and that's fantastic. It's different than books, but, like, they're tipping way too far into, like, a middle distance, let's stare at things, and I am to fill in my own blanks. No, because if I was going to fill in my own blanks, this thing would have been burned to the ground already. So if you could fill in some of your blanks for me, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know where any idea of resistance is going.
No.
In this season, but maybe they'll tell us some limitations that the resistance faces. I don't know.
And if June is a confusing character, then Commander Lawrence is a super confusing.
Ooh, I have no idea what to make of him.
I don't have any idea, and I think from the, like, coming soon on Handmaid's Tale, we're not supposed to.
Yeah. We'll see what happens in episode 2, but I am very nervous about our Bradley and what he needs.
I mean, clearly he needs another Emmy, so I'm fine with that. That's fine. Go with God, sir.
He's one of our favorites, so just...
Yeah, I mean, the last time he won an Emmy was for This Is How Much I Love Him, the episode of season 2 of The West Wing entitled Noel. So, because I know these things off the top of my head.
Big West Wing fans.
Giant nerd. On that note,
yeah,
I'm still Dr. Donnelly.
I am still Dr. Hinson.
We will be the perpetually frustrated Good Doctors of Abbey Research, and we'll see you for episode 2. Bye.
Bye.